Welcome back to a very special episode of the Oh No 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 podcast this evening. As you'll be well aware by the kit, the upcoming book, and of course all the stories, this year marks the 30th anniversary of Raith Rovers in European football. Now, I'm joined this evening by someone who was at the very forefront of the club during their halcyon days. John Greechan has spent 30 years working across some of the biggest newspapers in both Scotland and the UK, while also publishing Revolution, a book detailing Ange Postecoglu's rise within both football overall in a world scale and within the UK. John's also a UEFA-qualified coach and analyst, and currently covers Hibs for the Edinburgh Evening News. Most importantly for tonight, though, from 1992 through to 1996, he was a reporter at the Fife Free Press, with, of course, a front row seat to the glory days of Raith Rovers. John, just to start off, how are you?
I'm grand, thanks. I've had the lurgy like everybody else in Scotland over the last 10 days, but it's beginning to pass.
I'm away on holiday next week, so I'm trying to avoid it myself, but fingers
Avoid
crossed
everyone.
Can stick away. And yeah, I mean, naturally a place to start. Of course, just with Hibs at the moment, how are you enjoying Kieran Bowie? We're keeping close tracks on him as Raith Rovers fans.
The big man's great, isn't he? I think you could tell when he was coming through at Raith, he had raw ability and talent, but he's had some finishing school down south, and he now looks already probably a cut above pretty much in most games he's in the Scottish Premiership. He looks a cut above most players on the park. If only Steve Clarke would recognise that, would be fine.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed sooner rather than later. I think we were all watching that sort of, particularly in Kirkcaldy, and sort of saying, why has he not used them over Lyndon Dykes? But I'm sure that his time will come. So we'll start off right at the beginning for you, John. Just tell us about your first steps into journalism, and particularly with the Fife Free Press as well.
Well, it was great for me because I grew up in Glenrothes, but went to school in Kirkcaldy, so grew up reading the Gazette and the Fife Free Press, and kind of that was where you got your Rovers and your Flyers news in particular. When you were going to the games on Saturdays, then you would get your information there. So I'd gone to Napier, which was the only place that did journalism in Scotland back then. This is a long time ago, in '90. And then between first and second year, I managed to swing a bit of work placement at the Fife Free Press in Kirkwind in the old office, and just found like some of the best professionals I've ever worked with in decades since. Absolutely brilliant reporters and journalists who knew their patches and understood how things worked. And I swear I did 7 weeks that summer, and that was massive. I went from being like a middling student in first year to second year, just cruising everything because you'd been out in the real world and seen it. So when the job came up, it was just a news job. When I came back, when I was leaving and I knew there was a job coming up, I was desperate for it, just desperate to get in there and kind of be back home, I suppose. And I worked my way into the sport every time I could. Anytime the sports editor needed anything done, I'll do that, yeah. Stay late on a Wednesday, help out with stuff, if he's off, I'll cover it, because I always wanted to do that. And yeah, as you say, ended up being there for the glory years, which was just freaky good luck.
Well, I mean, it's certainly welcome to sort of look back at these articles and sort of the press clippings that are there at the time. I mean, we start off the 1992-1993 season with that 7-0 scalping against St Mirren. Just what was the feeling from sort of your perspective about the club at that point? Just sort of, you just been keeping tabs from afar and then to sort of go into that role?
Yeah, it was an interesting time, wasn't it? I mean, nobody really expected it, but I think everyone knew that they had something special going in those first couple of years. Obviously, everything builds towards 94 and 95 there, but there were some utterly spectacular things going on behind the scenes and good players coming in and a kind of gradual, I'm going to say, professionalism of things on that side of it and doing things properly. And obviously, Jimmy Nicholl was the big catalyst for that.
Yeah, how did you find Jimmy to work with, just as a sort of person?
Just magic. I mean, I consider it one of my great bits of good fortune. When I was a young sports writer, sports reporter, the guy I went to see every Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it was a Tuesday, was a guy who could fill, he could have filled 20 editions of the paper in about 20 minutes because he was just so loquacious and willing to talk about things and just he talked in headlines. He just gave you good lines. and he was really helpful to me and really good. And it was a great bunch around the club that time. You know, Silky, Peter Heatherstone, and guys like that who were just absolutely hilarious and good crack, and always had they knew how to play the game, as it were, and you always got good stuff out of them.
I mean, do you think that's something that's changed over the years, that players are maybe a bit more reserved, particularly with sort of social media and things? I mean, we had a squad full of characters at that point when you think back to your Sean Dennis, Silky, etc.
Oh, Big Sean, I love Big Sean. I was so saddened by his passing because I loved him. He was at school with me. He reminded me of that when I went up to him. Big Sean was just that I loved him, and he looked after me a lot. You know, 'cause remembered me through school, and he knew he kind of knew because it was quite a I say it was a funny dressing room, but it was a hard dressing room as well. There was a lot of pranks and a lot of silliness and a lot of sharp wit, and you had to be on your toes. You had to learn quickly.
Yeah, I can only imagine some of the antics that they were up to, and the discussions. I mean, you hear about it in terms of the books and the sort of TV shows that have done the rounds over the years, but to obviously very different environment, I feel, in terms of football now. I'm sure you'll obviously be more than aware of that. A lot of stuff going on in background as well with the club at that point. So 1993, in May, there was a vote for the reduction in terms of the teams for top flight, but also as well, you had the Jock McStay, Duncan Ferguson situation that occurred. What was that like to view from a local level? Because obviously from a national level, I'd imagine it's very different because you have known Jock, you have experienced him, you know what he's like as a human being. So is it quite difficult on that front to sort of watch that happen?
Yeah, because I remember being at the game, and one of my old college pals was there working for the Rangers News at the time as well. So I think we were sitting chatting, and watching the game on foot, and it was like, what the hell just happened there? And it was such a nothing incident. That was the whole point of it. It wasn't like things escalated. It was like the Anchorman thing. Boy, that escalated quickly. They
Uh-huh.
literally turned around, look at each other. Next thing you know, he stuck the head up. It was like, what's going on? So it was weird. And I remember, covering it from the local angle. I remember getting a look at, probably shouldn't have done, but I had a look at the referee's report. Somebody at the club let me see that, and we had that in the paper and things like that. It was yeah, because it became all about this guy who was, amazing to see him now, isn't he? Because he's everyone's cuddly Uncle Dunk who's sending messages, and he's just this lovely character. But he was such a troubled young man at the time, and all the focus was on him. I was like, poor old Jock, who's there's done nothing wrong and is getting vilified for this. Probably lucky it wasn't the age of social media.
Yeah, and again, it seems very strange to say because there's such a stigma towards it now. But you look at VAR, and again, that situation you would have to imagine doesn't occur. Oh, I mean, you would speculate, but um, yeah, certainly it's Alan Patullo. I know he's done a lot of work in terms of the stuff with Duncan Ferguson in particular. He's had pieces with Jock McStay as well from his perspectives to
Yeah.
make sure that he does try and cover that sort of balance as well. So it's a point that I just thought I'd touch base with you. Um,
And Jock, by the way, listen, let's not forget, Jock was a really good player as well. A really good player, great fullback, and was actually good in the air. But it was always worth going forward for corners.
yeah,
Get you a goal here and there. Yeah.
we've signed a boy from Boston United, Jay Rowe, who's also very good in the air. And I think it was Graham, who I will refer back to, Graham Meldrum. He did say it's like the second coming of Jock McStay when we signed him. So, yeah, glowing praise if there ever was. But yeah, 1994, 1995 rolls around. The club had just been relegated from the top flight. Confidence there to sort of bounce back. And with the League Cup campaign, how soon did you realise that it was lightning in a bottle with this Rovers team?
I mean, it really crept up on us. I remember, I think, yeah, when they got into the quarterfinals, and I remember going, hang on a minute, when's the last time Raith were in a semi-final? And suddenly I had to look. There was this big brown book in the offices of the Fife Free Press. It was about that thick, and it went right back to about, I'm going to say, the 1950s, and it had every game in it and every team line from the game. So when you took over as sports editor there, I mean, like on pain of death, you kept the book going. You filled in all the details, not the squad, who played when and all that. And I'm looking back, going, we've got semi-finals, and it just kind of crept up. He was like, oh my god, suddenly Race could be in a semi-final here. semi-final comes along, and I do remember, I remember because the build up to the final obviously was mad, and there was all kinds of media. I remember BBC coming to the actual Fife Free Press offices and interviewing me at one point. I'm like, mate, there's about 30 people at the club you could interview, but I remember saying, actually, there's a quiet confidence about this squad because they never know when they're beaten, type thing. And that was how it turned out. You know what I mean? You go back to that game, and the way that Raith approached it was kind of fearlessness and the youth playing in there, that, you know, if a player beat them, they'd have to beat them again 5 yards later because they had so much energy, and then leadership for guys like Dave Nerey and that. It just I still look back on it almost in disbelief when you look back and think about it, how remarkable it was, and just how lucky I was to have a ringside seat to that.
You've mentioned David Nerey there. I'm gonna ask this question. I suspect I already know the answer, but what did you have any interactions with him? Because obviously he's very famously sort of personally guarded, and sort of keeps himself to himself in terms of his sort of life away from a journalist perspective.
Some interactions with him, but never an interview. And I remember even it must have been a 20th anniversary thing I was at, and I was like to him, right, you still owe me an interview. And he's like, no. He just doesn't do it.
That's
And
fair.
he's just never done it. It wasn't like he was ever turned over or anything, like he's got some big backstory. Just doesn't do it. Just kept himself. But he was very much like that. He was a very much kept himself even a little bit separate from the squad, and would never go away and stay in a hotel. When they were going away to stay in a hotel, would just not like his own bed. And I could be wrong about this. My memory is that he did go away and stay in the hotel before the final. I think Jimmy Nick just went on, listen, you're going to do this one for me. It's a final. The boys need to see you there. I brought you to this club because you bring this leadership. Come to the hotel with us. And he did.
I was referencing the Rovers Bible that is always next season, and that was sort of talking about David Nerey's contribution, because I think he only played, he certainly played a smaller number of games given his age compared to the rest of the squad at that point. But they just said they think that no Rovers player, Jim Litster says in it, that he thinks that no Rovers players had such a big contribution for so few appearances in a jersey.
Probably right, yeah.
Yeah. Again, I was unfortunate enough to miss this spell. Just to go back to the point though, how was your experience of the 27th of November 1994? Just talk us through.
So, geez, I remember going through early. I remember we booked into, there was some Rangers supporters club that a whole bunch of group booked in to get a steak pie and a cup of tea before the game, and then went into the game. And I vividly remember, I mean, the rules of the press box certainly were, maybe not are anymore, the rules of the press box. You don't cheer, you don't shout. So I'm literally just sitting there like, I said, it's all going mad, and penalty shootout, everything, and I'm not. And this all came seeding out of me when it came to the Ramsden's Cup final.
Uh-huh.
And I went to that just behind the goal at Easter Road, and I went to it. And when we barely scores, I swear it was 20 years of pent up roaring and cheering from that game all came out at once. I was running up and down the stairwells, high-fiving people I didn't know, diving on folk.
That's what I wanted. You were high-fiving.
That's what I wanted to do in '94. You're there, and it's just like, I cannot believe this. This is just the greatest moment in club history. And you're kind of going, yep, very good, very good. And I distracted myself by taking note upon note of it. And you just like, that was a really good like stress thing. Note, and yet none of this is making it anywhere. None of these notes are going anywhere in print. This is just me scribbling in shorthand and longhand for the sake of scribbling now, to keep myself from screaming at the top of my lungs.
I mean, you're saying none of it went anywhere. Did you keep any of it for sort of reference as a sort of local lad that you've done your journalistic piece and then you leave the press later on?
Yeah, I've no idea. I think I did keep some cuttings from it at the time. We did a pull out, and it was just listen. It was bedlam. I remember getting back to Kirkcaldy and going to we lived around the corner for the Weavers, and going to the Weavers that night. And I remember, yes, literally dancing on tables and things like that. It was just absolute bedlam. And fortunately, I mean, it was a weekly paper, and there was no such thing as the online world, so you weren't writing anything until I got back in on the Monday morning, and you were like, okay, now I can start thinking about pulling together this pull-out that we're going to have to do, and what photos we've got, and what reaction we've got.
I do some of the videos at the time as well, talking at that point, even before the cup final. I think they had Chick Young at Starks Park, and he was talking to the squad from across the sort of 50s and 60s, your Willie Penmans, etc. And just sort of discussing it with them. And now you look at that as a legacy, and that's always there in terms of what's occurred. These guys have been greats in the club history, and it's just been eclipsed because this second tier team, which I think is often quite forgotten
Yeah,
on the outside, such a remarkable achievement. But then there was back to league business. I mean, Rovers ended up overhauling an 11-point gap on our lovely neighbours along the road, Dunfermline. I think that was at the point of the cup semi-final that we were 11 points behind. Did you sort of see the belief change in the squad sort of following that run as it went on week by week?
yeah, they felt untouchable and uncatchable, unbeatable. They just and why wouldn't you? But that again was a really good masterclass in management as well, because players could have just gone, we're legends now. Doesn't matter what happens, down tools can it? But Jimmy and Martin Harvey and the guys in there just managed to get them into this. Look, we're bottling this now, and we're unstoppable. If we can do this, let's go back up there and prove that we belong to be there. And play Celtic again next season.
Which they, of course, did in
Yep.
the League Cup the next time. Not as unfortunately controversial circumstances, but
Yep. There's a throw in, wasn't there? Yeah.
yeah,
Seem to
Pierre
remember.
van
Yeah. Yeah.
Hooijdonk, I think it was on the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony Ruggie played, did he? I think you seem to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll move on to of course why we're doing this podcast. That is the European run that we sort of want to focus to. So what were your hopes beforehand? Because I sort of, one of the notes that I wrote down, John, was that I think that often people look at the European run for Raith and they see a team from the Faroe Islands, a team from Iceland, and then Bayern Munich. Do you think it kind of get lost that even, I'm not sure if it was that season or the season before, but Aberdeen got knocked out by Skonto Riga.
Yeah.
So do you think that's something that maybe gets lost in sort of hindsight? And what were your hopes before a ball was kicked on that front?
Yeah. I think that's the remarkable thing. And a pal of mine explaining to his son, this is a good 15, 20 years later, about Bayern Munich, and his son was about 6 or 7. He said, yeah, but they got past a Faroese team and an Icelandic team to get there, and his son wouldn't believe it. No. Because at that point he was telling the story, Scottish teams just didn't do that. Whoever was at finishing third in the league was getting papped out by someone from Estonia. It just wasn't happening. So I think that's the remarkable thing about it, is the fact they got past those two. I remember right at the very start, when we sat down before pre-season, I sat in the wee manager's office at Starks Park, and Jimmy said, I just hope you want to get knocked out by someone you know, a name you know, a name you recognise. And he says, you don't want to get knocked out by a team you can't pronounce. And then, of course, here comes Gotu Itrotartsfalag in the first round, and it's completely unknown, isn't it? You're like, we have no clue, no idea. But there began the adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And a comfortable 4-0 win at home. What did you make of the performance at the time? Just Rovers adjusting to European football. Certainly it looked like with ease based on the YouTube highlights that I've seen.
Yeah, you know what? This is terrible because you see so many games, and I can't remember much about that first game, to be honest. I remember the second game vividly because of the travel to get there. Supposed to be taken off. I remember at the time, again, Jimmy just said, just jump on the team bus at Starks. We're leaving at 8 in the morning. And I got a phone call from the secretary about 7 saying, no, the flight's been put back. The guys were just given the day to relax. Colin Cameron went sunbathing on Burnt Island Beach, turned up with a big red face. We flew in the evening. A terrifying flight into Faroes and then staying in these tiny wee mad hotels. And the game over there was insane. It was the old Toftier Stadium. Took forever to get there. It was, our press box was the room in a hostel. The hostel, like the stand had a hostel in it. So we sat with our early laptops on the window ledge, perched on the edge of a bed to write our match reports. So it was like that. So I suppose you can forgive me for forgetting the first game because the second game was so mad and so mental.
Yeah.
And we all jumped on the team bus after it and go to a touch flag, sent on some cases of Carlsberg for the journey back. And it was good. I mean, I don't think, again, because we were in so late, I don't think there was even a pub in the Faroes at that time. I've been back like twice since with Scotland, and every time I've been back, it's improved. But back then, it was just the wilds of nowhere. I remember one of the boys getting a haircut on the day of the game. There was nothing else to do. One of my colleagues just went, "Oh, I found a barber's, got a haircut." It was so kind of wild and windswept and mad. But it was like you say, probably I don't remember because I don't remember there was no drama about that tie. Unlike the Acrani, well, you'll come to it next, the Acrani's tie, which was full of drama.
Yeah, I mean, that was really my next question was sort of the novel experience to report from the Faroe Islands. And I know you've touched on it, having an early laptop there. I'm guessing the press at that point, was it a Thursday or a Friday that it would have released on?
Aye. So yeah, so a Thursday afternoon. No, Thursday it was out, so we were on a Wednesday afternoon. Was the fun? I can't even remember the details of how we got things done. It was madness and mayhem. I
Yeah, it
think
was.
I think we were okay though. We certainly didn't miss an edition. Put it that way. Your weekly press had match report and reaction in it. Put it that way.
And
Because
the
I'm sure
travel.
the games were on a Wednesday night as well, Tuesday or Wednesday. It wasn't like this Europa League thing where it's Thursday nights. They were Wednesday night games.
All right, okay. And
I'm sure.
yeah, just with the travel aspect, you mentioned that there. So taking your life into your own, well, getting your life taken into someone else's hands for you, I'm guessing.
It was terrifying, man. It's all you hear about it all the time. It's you need a special license to be able to land there, and that's why the first flight was delayed. There was a problem with the plane they chartered. The pilot wasn't qualified, and you kind of just go in like that, heading towards a cliff, turn right, drop, and you're in. Just so you're just like that. And of course, with that squad at that time, the hilarity and just it was just like madness and uproarious. It was like a school party or something. You say they're already well up for the first leg. They were just in high spirits and having a great laugh. But went out and got the job done. Um, and I remember trying to remember. I think a ball went so far. I'm sure it ended up in the Arctic Ocean at one point. There was a shot. And it was just this. You'll see in the old pictures of it in the old video maybe. It's this really really weird kind of odd picturesque setting. I was back there with Scotland for the 2-2 draw with Bertie Oates, and actually before that game, I'm in the hotel and I ended up in the Scotland team hotel for some reason. And Stevie Crawford comes up, all right, John, remember this? And it's like, oh, we're at the reception. I was like, can't imagine what he was playing for Scotland that time. He's like, I can't believe we're back here. So, but listen, great experience to be there. But it's set up. The worst thing would have been you don't want to go out to a team that people will be going, what was the name of that bunch again? You know?
It's so often, again, speaking about Dunfermline, a lot of the stuff in their sort of latter European runs, I think the other team that was from the Faroes or Iceland or so, and they kind of get a bit of a ribbon about getting knocked out by a team of fishermen, etc. Which again,
Oh, aye.
with the standards that you get as well, it's tough because, like you mentioned, Jimmy Nicholl's going into that game with no idea of what this opposition's going to be like.
Oh, yeah, wasn't in the days of Y Scout. You can suddenly look up, the Faroese under 23 league. They had no idea what they were going to be like. I'm pretty sure they would not have had anyone scouting them or any idea. Um, Probably somebody somewhere would have known somebody that would have told you something about them, and that'd be it. Um, the Icelandic team Crannies were definitely a cut above, and that is actually that Crannies team now. If you take their standard, they would give most Scottish teams in Europe a real fright, a real danger. You wouldn't have fancied like this year, even with Hibs going and beating Partizan. I think at Crannies, they were right up there in terms of they had two guys that were just about to sign for Ajax. They had guys that had played international football, played at a lot level. They were very, very strong.
Yeah, come on to them in a moment. But what was can you remember anything really about the sort of supporter reaction to getting through? Now, naturally, it's I'm sure it's going to be sort of enthusiasm that we might potentially get a sunny away day somewhere.
Yes, I mean, yes, the Faroe Islands. Yes, loads of jokes about the Faroes. Are they not in Egypt? Can we take our sun hats? Yeah, there was a lot of. I can't believe we're going someplace even more windswept and interesting than Kirkcaldy. Yeah, I can't remember how many fans travelled to that one, but it didn't feel like that many, and you can understand why. Um, when the draw came through, there was a like again, everyone wanted to be like, let's just get through this one, please, please don't let this to be it. Let's have a proper one. Um, yeah, and then Iceland again was like, oh, are we ever going to get anywhere? I remember it was regionalized though. They used to regionalize the draws, so you were always going to get a kind of Northern European. I don't remember who the other. I mean, it was in a group of 4 or 5. I don't remember who they were. But I remember we had it almost. I think the draw was on a Wednesday as well. Wednesday, 11 a.m. or something like that. And again, pre-internet days, we were waiting for the news wires to come out and tip, and then phone Jimmy and get something in really, really quick into the press out in Mitchelson Industrial Estate. They'll print, but literally typing it in there, throwing it in as a type it sort of thing. Yeah, and then yeah, it was. Yes, and we got the glamour in the end, but it certainly wasn't, a particularly glamorous start.
Yeah, it was certainly well earned given the hard miles that had to be done there because it was not like nowadays where EasyJet and Ryanair, etc., are offering you cheap flights to here, there, and everywhere. And it was no rest for the wicked, or again, no sun for the wicked as well with that trip to Iceland. Rovers start off with a rather surprising, should we say, 3-1 win at home. You mentioned the crannies in terms of their strength. I think their current national team manager was actually part of the squad. I think it's Arnar Gunnlaugsson and
Oh
his
yeah,
twin brother Bjarke. Um,
yeah,
just what were your feelings going into this, and what was the sort of mood in the camp about it? They've obviously navigated the first sort of preliminary round, and then to be able to go to sort of have this extra European game, albeit against a higher standard, probably of opposition.
yeah. I mean, it was a weird, again, almost an introduction to a different level of European football. I vividly remember Starks had its capacity cut to about 8,000 or 8,500 because of UEFA, because something about the terracing and yada yada yada, and the Icelandic officials turned up the day before the game and started complaining about the goal mouth not being completely square and how they were measuring it. They had like it was all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And then the game itself, I mean, it was 2-1 for quite a long time. I seem to remember. And Barry Wilson, I'm going to say, this is working without notes. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Barry Wilson scores late to
Yep.
make it 3-1. And you're like, at that point, you could tell everyone thought that could be that could be the one because this lot are handy. You could tell they were a proper team. And yeah, the two brothers you talked about there were, can't remember who it was. One of the Raith players said to him, I thought he was a good player because I went right through him and he bounced right back up again and ran at me again. The 1990s football, you could do that. An absolute reducer on him. The boy just got up, came at him again. They were hard, they were physical, they were really skillful. And the first leg was brilliant. I mean, it was sold out. Also, it was absolutely. It felt like a proper, you know, a contest. And here this is why we're here. This is what we wanted. We want a proper team and a proper contest. Um, but we want to win it as well.
Yeah, Danny Lennon got the other two goals, I believe it was. Albeit
Oh,
I might be wrong. I might be committing sacrilege among Rovers fans and getting that wrong. But yeah, here we are. And yeah, just again at 1-1 at half time. I'm going to guess there was quite a degree of trepidation about that away goals being a factor there.
yeah, yeah. I think so. We've lost the away goal, and that was a real factor. I mean, it's only just gone now, eh? But it was a real factor. You were thinking, oh no, this is exactly what they wanted, and 2-1 wasn't. You're still thinking that you see them winning 1-0 over there, and that's it. And you need to go and score over there probably. The 3-1 just gave you that chance. It was just a proper game of football, proper like yeah. real dramatic tension because you didn't know. You genuinely didn't know. Not like the Faroe Islands one when you're 4-0 and you know it's done. Just didn't know what was going to happen here. It felt like everything was on the line and everything they'd worked for. Just the players, the coaches, everyone, they were greedy as well. We've won a cup and we've been in Europe and got to the second round or whatever it's called, the second qualifying round, whatever it is. We want more. And boy, they went out and got it in Iceland. And the kind of the coda to that, all this complaints about Starks Park not being up to scratch and complaining about the goalmouth and everything. We turned up at the Acranes ground, and it's just basically grass banking. Folks standing and sitting on grass banking. It's like, where's your UEFA rules now? I mean, this, and it was we had a weird pavilion in the corner where the press box, your press were stuck inside. So you'd go outside and stand on the balcony to watch the game and take turns to go inside and type things up. We all had to do it in shifts to watch the game in shifts. It was a slightly mad, but it was listen, you come on to it, a hell of a game over there. Hell of a game.
Yeah, I mean, with the away leg, Jimmy Nicholl tries a new formation, 4 at the back with 2 sweepers. Did you have any inkling of that, John, when it was that it was in the works before the match? Did you get any inside scoop, or was it just a surprise to you as well?
I think it was a surprise to the players. I think the players were like, what? What are we doing? Fair to say it wasn't his best masterstroke. It didn't quite work, didn't quite come off, but it was, you could see the logic behind it. You could see the logic. He's like, I'm just trying, we just need to see this out here. Just need to see this out. But it still comes down to individuals and players. So nobody will pretend it was the greatest performance ever. Scott Thompson makes a save late on that is full stretch, and it's like just a blinding save, and that effectively does it. That was the only real thing I remember about the game itself, is that save, and I remember just going like that. Cannot believe he's done that, pulled that save off, and you could see the Acranes players sag when that happened, because you get your 1 chance or 2 chances. That was their chance. It was a right good chance. I'm trying to remember. Don't remember who had the shot, where it came from, but it's a goal. It's just a goal, and Tomo does what he did in full stretch, paw out, bang. And you're like, there we are. And suddenly we're back on the bus, delighted.
And what was the mood like about the camp afterwards, in terms of your access and sort of just the feeling about how the achievement, the scale of it?
Oh, they were cock a hoop, absolutely cock a hoop. And I seem to remember, could be getting confused, but I'm thinking it is at this airport. We're back at some airport, wherever, maybe it's Reykjavik Airport, flying out, and I think we're flying late at night.
It is.
Keflavik, yeah. And Stevie Crawford is rolled up on a ball, like he's doing somersaults, and Sean Dennis is rolling him along the tunnel towards the plane. I just don't know why that sticks with me, but it would stick in your memory. I think they were just absolutely. Listen, you spend long enough around football, they're children, right? Right. 38-year-old men they're just children when they're in that environment, and they were kids, and they were young guys and young footballers. It was just absolute hilarity, and then it became, who are we getting? Who are we gonna get? Who are we gonna get? The whole flight back, because you knew the big teams were coming in, right? And that was, you knew, could it be an English team, or could it be, a Spanish or Italian or whatever it is? This could be the trip down the old trips now.
Yeah, before we get on to that, just a couple of more points. I mean, aside from the indiscretion, shall we say, of the players, what was your experience like? Because I feel like with a lot of people that I speak to about the Rovers' European journey, the game in Munich obviously catches the eye line because it's the scoreboard and it's a team from Scotland doing something that's not really been seen to the same degree as such. A small regional team from Scotland goes to one of the biggest clubs in Europe. Naturally, it's going to take the headlines. But for a lot of the fans that went on those European games, it's the Keflavik International Airport where you had both the press, you had the fans, and you had the players. And because of delayed flights, everybody's mixing together. So what was your take on the atmosphere, and how much was that enjoyable for you?
listen, there was always a great feeling about that squad and that team at the time and that club with the fans because they just mixed. They just mixed with the fans, and that was just the way it was. There was no distinction, no gatekeepers. You know, they'd be in the bars together, they'd be there, all celebrating together and just enjoying themselves, and that went right all the way through. I'm a bit hazy. I mean, that's why I'm a little bit foggy on the details of whether it was. Yeah, I'm sure it was Sean Dennis and Stevie Crawford. I mean, if it turns out to have been like Mickey Cameron and Davy Sinclair, well, sorry. But it's the kind of thing that Sean would have done, definitely, just rolling him down the aisle like that. Just silliness. And yeah, when you think back to that time, you smile a lot, and it's not always about the football. It's just about the characters and the jokes and the silliness of it all, and that's kind of what makes it fun.
And I think as well, when you look at the squad, they seem like the type of bunch that were very much work hard, play hard, and
Oh yeah,
the way
yeah,
that
yeah.
they were, the way that they came about. Now, at that time, progressing through the games in Europe, I'm going to guess, given the nature of football, there's always the other teams out there that are going to be taking an interest. Were quite a lot of these guys having their interest peaked now in terms of opportunities elsewhere? Were they maybe becoming a bit more conscious that this is raising my profile, or were they just enjoying the ride?
I think they were just enjoying it at that time because it was. I'm trying to think players had moved on in the past, but it was still pre-Bosman era. Then Bosman was till the year after, or was it that year, that summer, in fact? So it was really early days. It wasn't quite player power and everything. Clubs had your contract until they decided to let you go. So yeah, I don't remember much about transfer interest or. I mean, there was always Stevie Crawford was always, there was always chat about where he would go and what he would do, and Jason Dare as well. I remember trying to think. I think Blackburn were really keen on Jason Dare at one point, and yeah, but mainly I think everyone was focused on let's wring every last drop we can out of this. And of course, it was pre-transfer window days. There was a deadline as opposed to a window, so it wasn't like you had to cram everything in a certain wee little frenzy as it was. So there was always opportunities.
Yeah. And then, of course, we go back to the European run. And just tell me your reaction when you saw the draw.
Well, it had to be quick because again, I'm pretty sure it was a Wednesday, 11 a.m. time phone call, and I arranged to phone Jimmy, and I'm literally standing into it's in, like the industrial estate up at Mitchelstown, and that was where the printing was done. That's where the typesetting was done, and there was a phone on the wall, and I'm on the phone with my notepad. Yeah, 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 great, 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 great. Like, you know, 500 words of reaction from Jimmy Nick, brilliant. And then Batter sitting down at some old-fashioned terminal, rattling out, and they're getting it on the back page, and it's out by 2 o'clock or something like that. You know, it's out in the streets 2 o'clock on the Wednesday afternoon.
Was it quite surreal to watch guys that you've known? I mean, you say that you've known Sean Dennis since high school. Quite surreal to see in terms of particularly just looking at the team. I mean, Ballon d'Or, you've got Klinsmann, 1995 Ballon d'Or runner-up. Papan wins it in 1991. Mateus wins it in 1990. What was that like, just to sort of see the reaction from both the players and from your own perspective? You're watching these guys, you've watched them in places like Dingwall, Stirling, etc., and now they're going up against European superstars.
Yeah. I don't think they'd even been at Dingwall at that point. I think Ross County were in the league at those days. But you'd watch them, yeah, and some watch some Fife Cup ties at Cowdenbeath. And suddenly, yeah, particularly the younger players, right, if you'd seen come through from YTS lads, right, through suddenly getting this opportunity. Um, it was remarkable, but it was like it was the perfect tie, though, wasn't it? It was like, because nobody expects anything now. And it's exactly what Jimmy said. You want a team that everyone knows. So you can go and as in 20, 30 years' time, you're going, do you remember the night we played, if it's AC Milan or, Tottenham Hotspur or whoever the hell it is. Let's go and let's play a big, big old team. And there it is. It's Bayern Munich. And you just couldn't have got really much bigger. I mean, they go on to win the tournament that year.
Yeah, I mean,
As well, and it was the start of their FC Hollywood era as well, when they were beginning to capitalise on all their kind of commercial might and really dominate the German game. It's coming from 5 years on from that, they were doing that then. So
when you look back as well on the European run, I'm sure that there's a stat that was that of all the teams that Bayern beat to get to the final, I think Barcelona in the final was the only team that they conceded fewer goals than the Rovers did against them that season.
yeah,
Just there was a change of scenery for the first leg though. Easter Road,
yeah,
obviously now a familiar haunt for you. But
yeah.
yeah, what was the reaction in terms of behind the scenes from the squad and Jimmy Nicholl about that, and just as well tell us about your own thoughts.
I think there was a thought. Kind of knew we were on our plums when the crannies were complaining about Starks Park. You thought this is going to be tricky to get Bayern Munich in here, and you could sell it out 4 times over. And almost every round you went through, I think there were more requirements. It was the early days of the UEFA, stadium standard things. You can hear all about it now. Why certain grounds can't host it because their away dressing room isn't big enough and stuff. And they can't host a final. So it was the early days of that. So I think there was a kind of an acceptance early on that they're probably going to have to move it. I don't remember much about the details of why it was Easter Road, apart from just geography. It was there, and it was handy. There would be some sort of deal done behind the scenes on that one. And yeah, I don't think it bothered the players too much. They would have loved to have done it at their own ground, but the idea of getting a big old crowd and get a big crowd of Raith Rovers supporters together and generating some noise and taking the place over for the night, I think was the way it was sold to them. And the bonuses.
Yeah, there's always the bonuses.
We got more money, more bonuses.
And just with the game itself, was there anything that stood out about the 2-0 loss at Easter Road? Jurgen Klinsmann, of course, gets a double to sort of put Bayern into a very advantageous position. What was your memories of that night?
Yeah, so I remember a colleague went for one of the daily papers, had been at Bayern training the night before. He said, and Bayern were just like incredibly open. They just let you stay, not just this, you can get the first 20 minutes and then you have to leave. They let them stay and watch the entire training session. And he said that during the training session, Jurgen Klinsmann did not miss a single chance. He didn't get the keeper a save. He didn't miss the target or hit the post or hit the bar. Everything that fell to him in every small-sided game, and then the double box game they played with 77, everything was a goal. And he's like, they might be in trouble tomorrow because he looks so far a cut above. And he was great. But, I mean, there was some remarkable things happened. I remember started with 3 at the back, moved to a 4 and stuck Davy Sinclair in the midfield, and Davy Sinclair suddenly starts playing like, he wasn't around at the time, but an Andrea Pirlo. He's suddenly doing that. And Jimmy Nicholl saying afterwards, he had to catch himself shouting, Ronnie Coyle, you're giving Papan too much room. And then suddenly go, catch on to yourself, Jimmy. What have you just said there? Ronnie Coyle is giving his Pierre Papan too much room. Of course he is. He's terrified of his pace and his movement. It was a phenomenal, listen, it's a privilege to see some of those players. You watch players over the years, and I'm really glad, even being to watch so many games over there, you're really pleased when you go, I've seen Andres Iniesta play, and I've seen Messi play, and Ronaldo, and you go, regardless of what your team is doing, it's a joy to watch these guys. And that was kind of like that. As football purists, I think that night we're looking at Bayern Munich and going, they're just wonderful footballers.
Yeah.
Hard, disciplined, relentless, ruthless.
I've been there before myself. Me and my friend go to quite a few of the Scotland games, and particularly the one that stood out was the we beat Spain recently, but the game against Germany, that I think it was a 3-2 loss or a 2-2 draw at Hampden. I can't quite remember, but I remember watching Thomas Muller Ilkay Gundogan and Mesut, I think Mesut Ozil was still playing at that point, but you're just watching them stroll about the pitch and they're game intelligent. I mean, you've done so much on the coaching front. Just so far ahead with these guys.
Yeah, same with like Scotland ones. It springs to mind Kevin De Bruyne for Belgium against Scotland. You're watching them going, I don't know how you stop that. You could find space anywhere. You know, like the way he was doing it, or even the Bellingham for England against Scotland and Hampden.
Yeah.
Going like, oh, tell you what, this has been a really horrible, painful night, but I'm glad I got to see him play. A good player. So again, that was my memory of the home game as well. And again, you have to remember, this was pre getting lots and lots of football on the telly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got probably Football Italia would be up and running on a Sunday, but you didn't have lots of European football, so we didn't see Bundesliga. You just never did. You knew these players from World Cups and Euros, and then you're getting to see them play in this club environment, and it's one of the great clubs, and everyone, and God, you grew up with my age, you grew up with my dad telling me about Beckenbauer and everything, and these great teams, and if you know your history of the football, it's just one of the great marks, one of the great brands.
Yeah.
It's made it perfect, really.
Yeah, it's and there's this strange sort of relationship that it almost seems counterintuitive when you talk about Raith Rovers and Bayern Munich, because there's this intertwining where I think it was Lothar Matthäus where he was playing against, it might have been that they were up against Aberdeen. I'm not sure if he was manager or involved at some point doing media duties. And he says, I'm not aware of Aberdeen. I've only heard of I can't remember if it was Aberdeen or Dundee or someone. I'm not aware of this team. I only know 3 Scottish teams: Rangers, Celtic and Raith Rovers. Just very surreal to hear someone like that say it. But yeah, then we have the away leg, infamously the Olympiastadion in Munich. What was your travels like to that? I'd imagine it was a fair bit easier than making it towards going to Tórshavn in the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, I don't remember too many dramas about it. I think there was a slight delay on the flight again, but it was fine. We were out there. We had a good night out on the Tuesday night, I seem to remember. I remember walking into the Olympiastadion, and you walked in because part of it was sunk below the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you walked in at kind of halfway up, and wherever we went in reception, and I walked in and I looked around like this, and I went, well, don't know about the players, but I'm scared. It's like it was just so. And again, it's something you'd seen on TV. You watch the footage from the World Cup there and everything. It's just like this famous arena with the kind of webbing roof that was there, and it was a little bit terrifying for me also because I had been asked to do Radio 4th with Peter Martin, who now runs PLZ.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to remember was Gordon Dale was supposed to travel and do Radio 4th, but he had to stay back because he got interviewed for the Ayr United job and got the Ayr United job, I think. So there was literally nobody there, and he said, "You come on with me." So I was going to do radio. I was a wee bit nervous for that, and somebody sent me a VHS video about a year after, and it's the German telly with Radio 4th commentary over it. So it's unwatchable for me because I would have to listen to myself. I can't watch it. It's just horrible. Watch it with the sound down. Can't listen to yourself back.
And just from a journalistic perspective, what was it like? And was there anything that stands out for you in terms of the way that Bayern were treating people? Is like you go in terms of media, they've the very established club up there with the European giants, and you're going in to work there. What's that like from that point of view?
Yeah, incredibly professional, incredibly huge. You know, everything's all laid out for you. Everything's, it was way ahead of the wee pigeon box at Stars Park. Put it that way, the pigeon coop. But it was great. I mean, you can remember it wasn't a huge game for them. They're 2-0 up for the first leg. Not a massive support coming. It was. They were very, very polite and very kind about it. You could tell they just assumed they were going to walk over this lot, and that would be on their merry way to the final.
And the game itself, it's the shock of all. The most infamous moment in Raith Rover, or most famous moment, I should say, to give it its due credit, the free kick. Were they as stringent with the rules as it was in Ibrox in the cup final as to celebrations, or what was going through your
No,
head at that point?
no. So again, you're doing live radio now. Before it's again the first time I'd done live radio in any capacity, and before the game, the guy on the other end of the line had said, "Listen, we need to check for levels. Can you give us a level, the loudest you're going to be?" So we both kind of like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then I just imagine the poor guy when that goal goes in, because I'm sure his dial would be melting. Because Peter as well is just, he's absolutely ear splitting, and I'm completely losing it at this point. I scored! I love it! I scored! The volume was just people turning their wirelesses down all over all over Fife. It just you can't. You're trying to radio is different. You're trying to convey the excitement of it, and then I just there was a kind of shock and awe around the place. And then of course I do remember at least one, maybe two chances to make it 2-0
Yeah,
as well, and that was like the deep down you were going, no, like just ridiculous. Don't even think. But I mean, there's a chance there, right? Because you're telling us there's a chance. So
Tony
and then
Rucci.
yes, Tony Ruggie. God, I love him, but man, oh man, I think I had to bite my tongue a wee bit on the radio there. But it was listening, and in the end, it happens, and Bayern Munich do what Bayern Munich do, and they're by far the better team, going to win the trophy. And I think everyone, you got what we wanted out of it. You wanted to play against a really big team, give a good account of yourself, and come away going, tell you what, we had them worried for a bit. That's the same for every team in cup competitions. Your teams will come to, you'll come at Starks Park as the lower league teams and go, tell you what, we had them worried a wee bit there, and that's the way, that's all you're looking forward out of it. You just gone and given a good account of yourself. And you say, all those years later, Lothar Matthäus still remembers Raith Rovers.
That's it.
I did speak to him about it actually before the 99 Champions League final. I was over working for the Mail in London, and we went over to do lots of stuff with Bayern, and he was there. Was he still be playing then? He would have been, eh?
Yeah.
And he came up, oh wow, and I went, oh listen, you played against him. He went, oh yeah, that was great. I remember that, yeah. And you kept just being nice,
Yeah.
as it was. It's Raith Rovers. Oh, gave you a scare.
I wonder how many interactions players like that get where they have moments where it's like, you played against my local team, and they're like, I also played against fourth division German teams, etc., etc.
Well, footballers have got terrible memories anyway.
Yeah.
They're just like, you'll be talking to them going, aye, you remember you scored the goal, did I? No, maybe.
And then obviously scores come out the game. Jimmy Nicholl, was it a sort of immediate chat, or did you have to wait back until you were back in Kirkcaldy to sort of chat to him?
He did a post-match, because it was very German. They did the post-match press conference at a table and everything. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. He looked like he was still, I think he just wanted to be off with the lads for a start, but also he, played for some fairly big clubs and some fairly big games. They're all competitors. They're all ridiculous competitors. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And so I think he was sitting there like, it's all very well and good, but we're lost. So can I just get out of here now? And then we went back to the team hotel. There was a standing invitation for the press. Come back to the team hotel. One of the directors had put money behind the bar. We could not spend. They were like, no, boys, you've been here every step of the way. Here's to have some pints on us. And, different players took it different ways. Some were actually quite cut up about the loss, and one or two of them you could tell were having to be kind of G'd up by their teammates and lifted and told, listen, we've done well. The general rule was good. We didn't stay that long at the team hotel. We went back to ours, and it was a long night of there was like the last hurrah. Let's just celebrate. And I remember being back in Kirkcaldy the next day and straight into the Fife Free Press office. I think it might have been would it have been a Tuesday night game? Don't know. Yeah, it could have been a Tuesday night game. It was Halloween, wasn't it?
Yeah.
95. The Tuesday night game, so it was a Wednesday, so it was like literally have to get stuff rattled out. I'm sitting there like falling asleep, exhausted, tired I was. But listen, it was a brilliant. It's funny, I kind of owe so much to that period because Raith were succeeding and on such a big stage. I got to meet a lot of the guys from daily newspapers
Yeah.
and make loads and loads of contacts. That therefore, within a year, I was at the Mail, the Scottish Daily Mail, because you people knew, and when there was a job came up, they went, "Oh, what about him? He seemed to be pretty switched on, or he was all right," and people would look at it and they would have been reading your stuff for a start. Whereas it didn't matter how good you were if Race had been sitting in League Two in the second division and nobody's seeing it, you know. So
Yeah.
it was a very, very. I always consider myself blessed to have been part of that.
And yeah, what was your move like in that sense? You're saying obviously you developed these contacts over time. Was it just something that just seemed the natural step, given the sort of experiences that you've been through, and that opportunity just came around naturally?
Yeah, I do remember having a chat with the editor at the time, and I was or was it the managing editor or whatever, and I was like, I just want to know if I stay here, what's the path, you know? And I was looking, still very young. I was 25, 26, but you're talking about being an editor in one of the papers one day. Are you doing that? And he was a little bit dismissive, and it was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go and take this punt as well. And it was like a 6 month contract to the Mail. It was like, come and see how you do. He was like, well, just take a jump. But I remember saying to him, I went back to him, I've had my thought, and I'm going to take it. And he went, good, good. And he was just trying to push me in the right direction. He knew it was right
Yeah.
for me. He just wasn't. He didn't want to start making promises about what, because he wanted me to go and do it. So you love your sport, go and do it, and go cover it in there. Listen, again, having a really good boss, Leon Verba at the time, and Jerzy Morkis were the guys there. Brilliant people who taught me so much, so that when you went into a daily newspaper, you had a really good grounding. You knew, and we've done the cliche, you knew all about law, and you knew all about sources and context and how to cultivate things, and what was on the record and what was off the record, and how to do things. And yeah, I just felt a good time, and still got to cover a fair bit of Raith during those days as well, when they were up in the top flight. Not always enjoyable.
Well, it's certainly we've not been back up since. And I'm 36, so I was around at the time, but my parents are not football fans, so I feel like someone's made a Faustian pact on my behalf, in the sense that they've said, right, I'll make a deal with the devil, but the next generation's never going to see European or top flight football while they're going.
I
So
mean,
that's
I still remember, I remember Jimmy Thompson being the manager. I remember Tommy McLean, very short lived. Ian Monroe. So they remained a big story, Race. So they were in like national newspapers. I remember, writing stories about Raith Rovers still in the national newspapers in those days. They were still considered a story and a club, at least for a few years, before we even got to the Claude and Elka years,
yeah. I was going to
which
say
was not good.
definitely not. I've got a few questions on top of the ones that I've already asked. Just on behalf of our sort of group, Graham Meldrum, who was involved sort of as a fan during those years, he asked, who got the best transfer out of the European run, you or Macanesby?
I remember bumping into Macanesby, Stephen, on the Fulham Road in Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what are you doing? Because he was at Fulham at the time. I think he was more talented, so there you go. He probably deserved better out of it. I've spun it out for a lot longer.
Just with the topic of sort of like relationship of players, Duncan, he asked, how's the access to players changed over the years? And do you think if it happened again, would the relationship be different in terms of between fans and with the players themselves and journalists?
So it's different. So I've almost come full circle in that working with Evening News as the Hibs man, and for years I covered all sports and all teams, and you never really got to settle with one. You never really had that thing you had with Raith. And I'm not a Hibs fan, but my son is, because he was born in Edinburgh and grew up as a Hibs fan. And my late dad used to take him, not because he was a Hibs fan, because he wanted to spend time with his grandson. So the family sort of ended up gravitating towards him. But I've really enjoyed the reconnecting thing, whereas a bit like with Jimmy Nick, I will, not every week because it's been a bit mad with Europe and everything, but I'll go out and spend time with David Ray on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we'll just sit in his office and have a back and forth. And you can get player interviews, not too bad, and you just chat to players all the time. And the European trip that Hibs have just been on had some similarities in that the players were staying in city centre places and mixing with fans, and that's probably been the thing that Gray is most proud of, is that there's been this kind of bond between the fans and the players again that wasn't there for a long time. So yeah, I think it's changed, but I wouldn't really have been well placed to judge it before now, because I was too busy. You just never got a chance to go and see anyone. You'd see managers over the years and know them well just because you'd gone and done interviews with them. But it's been interesting. The issue now is that down at the local level, the local papers don't even cover the clubs anymore. So that's a great source of sorrow to me, because I think it was a phenomenal way to learn the business and to learn boundaries and make your mistakes and do stupid things and then go, oh, I can't believe I did that, and get into bother for it, but get yourself out, and then learn how to develop, and that's part of a wider issue now, isn't it? I mean, like they're saying, well, AI is going to remove the need for juniors all the way through, like junior programmers and everything. Well, where do the seniors come from? You still need people. You still need a training pass for people, and you still need places. And plus, I still think it's important that that your local club has a local paper or a local website, wherever it is, who genuinely cover every cough and spit. And saying that's what we try and do with the Hibs. I'm got Hibs women tomorrow night against Inter Milan, because of course you will. You need to cover that. Sorry, Wednesday night. Preview tomorrow. Wednesday night. So I think there's been some changes on that front. Probably partly to do with, as you say, the way football's changed and there's more gatekeepers and more club media and everything, but also the industry and the way it's responded to that.
Yeah, certainly with the Fife Free Press, that's their coverage. Personally, I've been quite critical of it. I've got nothing against the person that's covering it, but a lot of the time it'll be work that you see where they just basically pull interviews from Raith TV, and Davy Hancock and the guys there, they do a tremendous job. It's not to dig anyone out, but it's just, I think there is that sort of element of, you would love to see them connect more and do that, but you also understand that they've probably got about 4 or 5 different circuits that you might not see are looking down that route. So
the demand for content is just constant. So if nobody there they'll have no chance of having any time to go out and spend half an hour with the manager and then come back and write it up. They just won't. That's just the way it's gone, and that's just be an old fart and complain about how it used to be and how the world's changed. That's the world's changed. I'm just saying it's not the same as it was. Not the same as it was, and everyone's trying to find a way around it. But we got to remember, we're still in the online world. At this stage of newspaper development, we still had classified ads on the front page.
Yeah.
So nobody really, they'll kill me for saying this, but nobody in the online world really knows what they're doing. I mean, you get changes of strategy at major newspaper publishers every 6 months, because Google algorithm changes or Facebook changes or something. So it's still, I think it's going to develop. I think probably moving forward, local will become key again.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that. You see that with things like Mill Media in Manchester, the Bell in Glasgow. I think sport is a great way of doing that. If you've got 3,000 folk at Starts Park, where you've got, what was it, Saturday, 5,500 or something like that. But I mean, a big crowd like that, surely you want to sell to them. Surely that's a great audience,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about people having no clue what they're doing, and probably you bracket podcasters, I would say, as well, into that category. We've started up, and we've obviously got influences there. Terrace, particularly huge in terms of the content that they put out. And yeah, it's so easy for anyone to sort of get involved in sort of that game, but to be able to keep it to a certain standard, I would hope that we try and do that. We'll obviously have lapses from here and there, but you know, it's a learning experience, and I think a lot of it's just about getting out there and doing it itself. Like again, it's doing sort of these sort of one-to-one interviews is something that's very novel to me. It's something I've never done before. So yeah, just it's an adjustment. Speaking of online, how do you think with social media, do you think that would have made things like Keflavik International Airport, that sort of thing, players just generally maybe a bit more guarded nowadays, or do you think it's hard to say?
Probably with those players, no, they'd have just done it anyway. Did you? Big Sean was just irrepressible. Most of them were like that as well. No, I think they would have. Yeah, maybe things would have reined in a bit. It's hard to judge, isn't it? It's like arguing how would this player have done with the modern refereeing? You know, how many goals would he have scored,
Mhm.
or would that defender have lasted because he'd have been red carded? You know, before 20 minutes were up. So it's kind of hard to tell. I think the online world has made it different. Things are more immediate, more quickly out there, and socials are a big part of that. I think there may be, maybe there's a backlash coming to socials as well. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, have you got any final thoughts about the sort of European run that you want to share with us? Any anecdotes or anything that just springs to mind at all? Any parting words?
It was just uproarious fun. That's what I'll say. Just and it was, listen, it was hard work, and I hate to say that because my dad used to say, "You're not exactly down the pit, are you, son? You're not working in a factory for 14 hours." That it was like, up to that point, that was the hardest I'd had to work in terms of
Mhm.
the stuff we had to churn out, and I'm working more to deadline. And I'm sure, even when I was away, I'm sure I did some freelancing stuff like match reports and stuff like that when I was there. So it kind of it was stressful in its own way, but it was absolutely magic. And I say uproarious because it was just so much fun. Even the stressful parts, even the oh my god, that shot's going in a Kranis is like, oh, I saved it. There was like this just it was just a joyousness, and it was a great bunch to be around, and that was the greatest thing. You said earlier they were, they worked hard, partnered hard. If one went out, everyone went out.
Mhm.
It wasn't like six guys going out. I was like, no, there's 18 are going out. They're all there. They were all there. They were all out. They were and great, but also great footballers. You forget that, and it gets overlooked. Oh, isn't it great? And it used to be Jimmy Nicholl this and Jimmy Nicholl that, and he created this great um, camaraderie and everything. But there were really good footballers in there, players who went on to play for Scotland and other countries. But you had Colin Cameron, Stevie Crawford, and that went on to play. Players who probably could have played for Scotland. Players who went to have good careers in England and play at other clubs. Um, I think it just felt like, I think you said it was almost like lightning in a bottle. I think as a phrase you
Mhm.
used it earlier. It just felt like something that you knew it wasn't, couldn't last, couldn't possibly last. It was always going to be for a club like Raith Rovers. And as one of my pals says like, almost like he jokes with me about it. Says, you guys at Raith, he says, almost like you think, oh, we're awfully happy at the moment. Let's decide to be miserable again. Let's do something daft. And it's like, I know it feels like that, doesn't it? And he's a St. Mirren fan. He knows how it feels. It's like you kind of go, it's going great. No, it's not. It's never going to last. And that's the kind of club we are, and we just have to embrace the good times when they're here. And oh God, I would love to see them again.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's the self-loathing of being a Scottish football fan, I guess. You get it with the national team, you get it at every single level. And to be honest, currently in the country, you look all the way up to Celtic or right down to the bottom of the leagues. It's there's nothing else quite like that, and yet we're still highest per capita in Europe for attendances,
Again,
which
again,
just
if people turned out for like, I saw people talking about a certain march at the weekend. It was like, yeah, but there were more folk at football games in London that day.
Mhm.
You know that, right? And it's like the same here. It's like this is by far the biggest thing that anyone in Scotland does per capita. Nobody goes to the cinema or to the theatre or any other sport the way we follow our football. And we love it. And we love it because things like that happen. Things like Raith Rovers going to play Bayern Munich happen. yeah, that's why we love it, because that's what can happen. We also go in League Two, but you could also all in the same narrative arc. Where else do you get that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, I've seen all manner of different things, whether it's beating Rangers in a Challenge Cup, and you think, wow, you would never have thought that back in 2010. Just
Right.
a surreal sentence to say. But by the same token, I've also seen Rovers hit the post in the 90th minute on the final day to
Mhm.
miss out on a sort of third tier title. You've just got to live with it and roll with the punches. But yeah, John, I just want to thank you. You've been exceptionally generous with your time.
Problem.
It's been great to take this stroll down memory lane, hear all your stories about the sort of time with the Rovers, your time with the press. And yeah, once again, thank you very much for jumping on.
Not a problem at all. Come on, you Raith.
Exactly. Well, we will be back, of course, very, very soon. We're going to extend these sort of European run 1995 interviews. So we'll potentially look and see what happens next. But as ever, thank you for taking the time to listen. If you have enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe. John, I believe you're on Blue Sky for the social media.
I am, yes, Johnny the Greek.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that I put a follow in there. But yeah, thanks as ever for listening, and bye for now.